Hi there and welcome to the Daily Arsenal News Show. Let's dive into today's top stories. European giants is still very interested in signing £20 million Arsenal player in January. Whilst the main focus is on January signings for Arsenal, it seems one player could still depart Mikel Arteta's squad next month. Journalist Ben Jacobs has now been detailing the latest updates on the future of one Arsenal player currently on the periphery of things at the club. And whilst Jakub Kivior is proving to be a very useful squad player, it doesn't seem impossible that Arsenal would sanction a move away. Speaking to Give Me Sport, Jacobs has shared the latest update on the ongoing interest from Italy. He said, "The Milan interest is genuine. Of course, players can always potentially go out on loan to get game time, and that can be useful to all parties. But I don't see Arsenal selling Kivior because the right offer comes in or it's structured as a loan with an obligation to buy. I just don't believe that's something that Edu or Mikel Arteta would want to sanction. Firstly, they value the player. Secondly, they won't want to let Kivior go because they value squad depth. And this may be a welcome update to some Arsenal fans who see no benefit in a departure. Although Arsenal may feel the need to raise funds in January in order to support potential incomings, Kivior's exit wouldn't seem well advised. As well as having the trust to start in several Premier League games, the Poland international is still young at 23-year-olds, a player with rich potential, one who must be enhancing their game all the time at Arsenal. And it seems that although his future is at left centre back for the Gunners, he's been improving his skill set, learning an inverted role as well. Kivior looks a smart signing at £20 million and one that is very important for their squad depth across the season. Although not often used by Arteta right now, he could easily play 10 to 15 games before the season ends, and therefore an Arsenal departure in January looking unlikely bodes well for Arteta, who now has his sights on an extremely imposing midfield target. Mikel Arteta to block Arsenal star from sealing January transfer window move away. Arsenal midfielder Jorginho's links with Juventus have reportedly gone cold, according to the latest reports in Italy. It had previously looked like the Gunners' ace could be keen on leaving the Emirates Stadium for a return to Italy, though it's now emerging that that won't be happening this January, even if he is not seeing much playing time under Mikel Arteta. That's because Arteta is determined to keep hold of Jorginho in the middle of the season and won't be letting him go, according to calciomercato.it, as cited and translated by Sport Witness. Arsenal only signed Jorginho from Chelsea less than a year ago, and the Italy international has proven a useful squad player since then, even if he has rarely been a regular starter in his time in North London. Arsenal have had problems with injuries, most notably to Thomas Partey in that deep-lying midfield role, so there is surely room for Jorginho to play a fairly prominent role over the course of the season. Arsenal would be taking a big risk losing an experienced player like that in the middle of the season, so fans will surely be relieved that Arteta is seemingly determined to keep hold of him. Pundit claims 22-year-old Arsenal player looked like he had the hump against Aston Villa. Robbie Earle suggested that he spotted something about Bukayo Saka as Arsenal were beaten by Aston Villa on Saturday that he has very rarely seen from the 22-year-old during his career. Earle was speaking on the Two Robbies podcast as Arsenal missed the opportunity to go back to the top of the Premier League table with John McGinn's goal settling the clash at Villa Park. Arsenal definitely created the openings to win the game. However, they were so poor in front of goal, and the Gunners clearly felt aggrieved with a couple of the decisions which went against them. Bukayo Saka was one of those who missed a chance, and it's probably fair to say that the youngster did not manage to produce his best display against Unai Emery's man. Certainly, Robbie Earle felt that his body language was quite different to what we normally expect from Saka, who is known for being such a joyful footballer to watch. He said, very rarely do I see Saka look like he has got the hump a bit. He is not happy with himself or the game. He looked a bit off. I don't know, and I don't know if that was the way he was being played. I thought Dini did a really good job. Saka is certainly entitled to an off night. It has to be said that he has not been quite as impressive this season, and yet he has still managed to score 5 goals and provide 7 assists in the Premier League so far this term. He has been directly involved in 20 goals in 22 games in all competitions, so he has certainly pulled his weight in the opening months of the campaign. However, some of his teammates have been quite underwhelming. Martin Odegaard had a really poor night in front of goal against Villa. Meanwhile, Gabriel Jesus came in for criticism for apparently disappearing, and along with Gabriel Martinelli, the trio have just 8 league goals between them this season. But Saka clearly put so much pressure on himself, so while it probably was someone else's turn to really step up, he will definitely be frustrated with his own contribution. Jamie Redknapp says Arsenal star wasn't as good as some thought earlier this season. Jamie Redknapp has claimed that some actually got a little carried away in their praise of Declan Rice during the early stages of the season following his summer move to Arsenal. Redknapp was speaking on Sky Sports as he suggested that the midfielder has been so much better since moving into the holding role in the Gunners side. Declan Rice has arguably been one of the best players in the Premier League this season. Understandably, his form has been under the microscope after Arsenal smashed their club record to sign him from West Ham. But no one is talking about the fee to sign Rice anymore. The 24-year-old has been absolutely outstanding for Mikel Arteta's side. He has quickly established himself as the first name on the team sheet, and he has already scored 3 vital goals for the Gunners in the Premier League. But perhaps Rice's form was not quite as good as many of us would remember. Jamie Redknapp suggested that he was not as impressed, while the England international was playing in a slightly more advanced role. He said, early in the season, I have to be honest, I listened to a lot of people who got a bit carried away in terms of how he was playing. I think there was a few things that would paper over the cracks. He was playing in that left side in what I call the Chaka role last year. It didn't suit him. Declan Rice is a much better player when he has got everything in front of him. What Rice has done so impressively throughout his career is play in a number of roles as if he was a natural there. He began his first team career at West Ham as a centre-back before pushing forward into midfield, and while Redknapp will know much better than this particular writer, it did appear that Rice was more than comfortable at the start of the campaign. Now, you cannot deny that he has been on another level in recent weeks. He already feels like an absolutely vital cog in the Arsenal machine, but it's hard to argue with anyone who was just as impressed by how well Rice was playing in the early weeks of the campaign. Mikel Arteta has personally asked 54-year-old Gunners Invisible to join Arsenal. He could consider. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta personally wants Gunners legend Dennis Bergkamp to return to the club. That's according to Football Transfers, which has noted the steps that Arteta has already taken to convince the Arsenal Invincible to return to the club. So what has been reported about Arsenal, Mikel Arteta and Dennis Bergkamp? Let's take a look. Well, According to Football Transfers, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta personally wants Dennis to return to the Gunners. Arteta has extended a personal invitation for the Dutchman to join the Arsenal Academy coaching staff, according to the report. The report has noted that Bergkamp, an Arsenal invincible, himself is eager to rekindle his passion for coaching and will seriously consider any offer made by the Gunners, who lost to Aston Villa in the Premier League this past weekend. Football Transfers has suggested that Bergkamp, 54-year-old, could potentially replace Jack Wilshere as the under-18 boss should the Englishman leave to become a manager elsewhere. In my view, if Dennis Bergkamp returns to Arsenal in a coaching capacity, even at the youth level, then it will be great for the club. Bergkamp is one of the greatest players to have played in the Premier League. The former Netherlands star was the assistant manager at Ajax from 2011 until 2017. The 54-year-old is an Arsenal legend, and I believe that he has a lot to offer to the club and football. Young players would learn a lot from Bergkamp, who has a wealth of knowledge. During his time at Arsenal, Bergkamp won the Premier League title 3 times and the FA Cup on 4 occasions. The Dutchman made 315 appearances in the Premier League. He scored 87 goals and gave 94 assists in those games. Arsenal really admire £65 million midfielder and will work on a transfer for January. Ahead of the January transfer window, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal side are now being linked with an audacious move for a midfielder. It's widely known that Arsenal are operating with fairly strict financial fair play parameters in the coming window with not much room to move. However, journalist Bennett Jacobs has now shared that Arsenal do still have a lofty target for the window if achievable. Jacobs said that Arsenal are huge admirers of Fulham's Joao Palhinha, a player Mikel Arteta would love to sign in January. Speaking to Give Me Sport, he said, "He is a player Arsenal really admire, and we know about the Bayern München interest as well, but price tag is a problem because Arsenal spent big last summer, so a lot is just going to depend on whether or not Arsenal can find the finances within financial fair play during the mid-season or the summer window to have another big push." Of course, going far in the Champions League this season, winning the Premier League, getting back into the Champions League, and getting prize money will all help them ahead of the summer. I think that January is a lot harder because the price is going to be £65 million plus, and as soon as the price becomes that high, despite Arsenal's admiration and their interest being very genuine, they simply won't be able to move. So this is one to watch in the sense that the Arsenal interest is there. Of course, Arsenal's interest is certainly a nod to a clear trend we have seen at the club this season. Palhinha, who is a top-class defensive midfielder, isn't known for his progressive passing or ball carrying. Rather, he is a classic defender. There is arguably no one better than Palhinha in the Premier League at what he does, and therefore signing the Portugal international would fit right in line with Arteta's plan to make Arsenal more robust and harder to beat this season. The move would likely see Declan Rice make a permanent switch to the number 8 spot and would give Arsenal some exciting options. And whilst this report does state that it will be difficult for Arteta to bring Palhinha to Arsenal in January, there is clearly strong interest. A price tag of £65 million is mentioned, and that therefore may depend on Arsenal making one emotional sale in the coming window. David Seaman now tells Arsenal to sign Ivan Toney to boost title hopes in January. Ahead of the January transfer window, Arsenal legend David Seaman has now been sharing his thoughts on the club's prospective plans. Seaman was talking with Jeff Stelling on TalkSport this morning and ended up giving his old club a bit of advice. And whilst Seaman didn't think a deal was essential, he did think Arsenal would be well advised to recruit a striker in January. And the former goalkeeper had one particular name in mind, asked if Arsenal needed to buy a striker in January by Sterling, Seaman replied, I don't think they have to, but it would be a great boost for the squad, I feel. People look at people like Ivan Toney. I think he would fit, but it gives the squad a boost when you get new players in, but that big a signing, they don't normally happen in that January transfer window, but it would be a boost if I'm honest. And whilst many expect Arsenal to have a quiet January transfer window, fans might be reminded what happened last season. All of Jakub Kivior, Leandro Trossard, and Jorginho arrived mid-season, and incidentally, one of those is now linked with an exit. It does now seem as if every frustrating Arsenal performance will be followed with the pleas to sign a striker. However, there is definitely merit to the thought. Although Arsenal played well at Aston Villa and were perhaps a little unlucky to walk away with nothing from the game, they didn't get stronger as a result of the players substituted on. Perhaps replacing Gabriel Martinelli in the second half did end up looking like a mistake, and all of Leandro Trossard, Edin Ketia, and Reece Nelson failed to change the trajectory of the game. However, with £50 million Ivan Toney on the bench, or perhaps even in the starting 11, Arsenal wouldn't have the same issue. It would be a bold move to make in January, and one that would probably need balancing with outgoings, but Seaman is right in stating that it would be a huge boost for Arsenal, and whilst it might be difficult to sell some beloved stars, it may now be for the best. As we wrap up today's Arsenal news, remember to stay tuned for daily updates right here on the channel. Don't miss out on the latest updates, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like if you found this information valuable. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.